So if you could say to me, you cannot say retard, but you can say blank, and give me some assurance that the blank, this new word here, is going to be like forever protected and we're all okay with it. Oh, great. I would totally do that. But in the absence of such an assurance, I can only assume that every word will end up as an insult. You know, people used to do, moron, imbecile, cretin was originally meant to be a rather positive term. Cretin, he says here, the implication was that people with sufficient intellectual development disabilities were still human and deserved to be treated with basic human dignity. That's what cretin meant. It means you're an idiot, but we still love you. You're a cretin. Nowadays, it's an insult. Everything becomes an insult. And rather quickly, I think, when you have a lot of people just trying to get rid of the words themselves, you go through a lot of words. There's a little thing we call the euphemism treadmill here. And it exists in other contexts as well. We have, for people who have a physical problem, a physical blank. We went from the word of lame to crippled to handicapped to disabled to physically challenged to differently abled. At each point, one of these, the word was considered the proper way, polite way of saying it. And then each point that word became used as an insult because, having only one leg is generally considered a disadvantage. And therefore saying, you're a cripple becomes an insult. So we go on to handicapped, we go on to... It gets to this point where, we're not allowed to have any words. Mentally ill, is that what we're going with now? Here, watch this, ready? You're mentally ill. See what I did there? You just put the right tone of voice onto it, the right attitude, and suddenly, mentally ill becomes a negative term. Now we need mentally disabled, or mentally held back, or mentally retarded, which comes back to what the guy said initially, that it was a word actually meant not in a scientific sense. Yes, we ought to use the scientific terms to these people, and they shouldn't use this thing which has something to do with machines or whatnot, nothing to do with anything. Well, actually, I have the data here. Mental retardation is a generalized triarchic disorder characterized by sub-average cognitive functioning and deficits in 2 or more adaptive behaviors with onset before the age of 18. Once focused almost entirely on cognition, the definition now includes both a component relating to mental functioning and one related to the individual's functional skills in their environment. And this is listed on official things like the ICD and Diseases Database, eMedicine, MESH. We got official, there are actual scientists that use the term retarded, which confirms what I thought before, that retarded was originally invented as a nice, polite, scientific term. You're not an idiot, you're just retarded. And then retarded became... I want to escape, all forms of prejudice as a society. I want to escape all forms of, wrongful thought on all issues. And one of the issues being how to treat the retarded people. And while we're at it, I also need a word to describe stuff which is, dumb. If I'm driving somewhere and I make a wrong turn. Oh, I turned here and I should have turned there. Wow, that was retarded. I will use that. I'll say that in my daily, speech. And I'm not allowed to say it's retarded. Okay, what if I said it was stupid? Guy I was talking to seemed to think stupid might be a bit better. But I'm like, well, wouldn't that be just, offensive to stupid people? If I said, wow, that was dumb of me. Would that be just offensive to dumb people? Wow, I'm an idiot. Is that an offense to idiots now? Is that... You mentioned Bill O'Reilly recently said on his show that Barack Obama's stimulus plan was retarded. And the retarded people took offense at that. Or, all sorts of people took offense at that, whether or not they were actually retarded. Or mentally ill. People took offense at Bill O'Reilly using the term retarded to describe Barack Obama's stimulus plan. I said to this guy, what word should Bill O'Reilly have used? And we talked for a second. And he's like, we shouldn't use that word. I'm like, well, sure. Like, if he believes that Barack Obama's plan is the result of a mentally deficient process, he's like, well, he could say that. And I'm thinking, well, A, that's a lot of words, and B, you're the result of a mentally deficient process. It's an insult. Again. And it will be an insult to everyone in the world who has mentally deficient processes. Anyway. A lot of people face a lot of prejudice, and a lot of people have a lot of compassion, and they want to help, and I'm trying to say that's great. But you're wrapped up in the notion of the word itself. And the notion that when someone says, wow, that's retarded, they are necessarily intending a form of insult. That they are necessarily believing the mentally handicapped to be of lesser human stature. Well, I have a friend who's retarded. And that doesn't mean I hate her, or him, as the case may be. That doesn't mean I loathe her. That doesn't mean I consider her as a lesser person on some fundamental philosophical measuring scale or something. Don't assume that. I even said at one point during this debate, well, if a person, or if there is a mentally disabled person, he says, no, don't say that. Like, don't say what? Like, you said mentally disabled person, but we prefer person with mental disability. That puts the person first. And I was like, why do you assume that because the word person comes up first in the sentence, that it is therefore first in my mindset? Like, if I say Bob and Stan went to the zoo, does that mean Bob is more important than Stan? Or maybe that's just the way I phrased it. Maybe there's been so much prejudice that certain people anyway, have become accustomed to assuming that everything is prejudice. And since prejudice, can only be observed when someone mentions in some way the idea of the retarded, which is a scientific term, by the way, which is why I'm continuing to use it here. I have the Wikipedia page and everything. I have other pages besides Wikipedia to show me, yes, it technically, that's a word. Because someone has to mention the idea of retardedness in order to insult the retarded. And because insult happens so often, maybe some people assume every time it gets mentioned, outside of a charity organization or something, every time it gets mentioned, it has to be insulting. That's clearly what the other person meant. And maybe the other person didn't mean that. Maybe they're just trying to express the truth of the matter. We gotta have a word, a phrase as something that we can stick with which to communicate. That's what language does. Even to communicate the, awkward or painful things we'd rather not think about. Some people are retarded in a literal medical sense. And I need a way of saying that. And furthermore, there's the separate notion of normal, everyday foolishness. If I'm driving somewhere and I took the wrong turn. Wow, I could say foolish. But guess what? That's probably an insult to foolish people. You're foolish. See that? And suddenly becomes insulting. We need words. And we need compassion. And the people I was debating with have compassion. But I think they're a little confused on the subject of words. Thanks for watching. See you later.